So what we just determined is that all the way around the circle is 2 pi radians, because that's the circumference of the circle, 2 pi, circumference of a unit circle. Okay, so we know that the full circumference of the circle is 2 pi radians, which is the same as 360 degrees. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just to make this easier to see, is I'm going to get rid of these units. I'm going to get rid of where it says radians. I'm going to get rid of the degree symbol. I'm going to keep saying it so that it's easier to follow. Okay, so what this tells me is that 2 pi is the same as 360 degrees. So 2 pi radians is the same as 360 degrees. Which means if I divide both sides by 2, that means that pi radians is the same as 180 degrees. Okay, now I did that just because I wanted to get pi by itself. I wanted to get pi to be kind of the smallest unit. Okay, and the reason I did that is because that's going to help us out here when we do conversion. Okay, now before I move on, though, I do want to point this out. So 2 pi is the same as 360 degrees. That's all the way around the circle is 2 pi radians, and it's the same as 360 degrees. Halfway around the circle is 180 degrees. That's pi radians. So we just used math to show that this is true. Okay? You can keep going with this, and you can say, oh, well, just half of that's a 90 degree angle. That's if I took that 180 and divided it by 2, I'd get 90. Pi divided by 2, we usually just leave it as pi over 2. And that's a 90 degree angle is pi over 2. So you can keep dividing this and you keep getting these angles, okay? But we don't always have nice angles that are easy to do this with. So it's really, we prefer having something we can just multiply by. So let's do that. Okay, so let's say I have 60 degrees, okay? What I'm going to do to be able to change the 60 degrees to radians is I'm going to multiply by pi over 180. Now, big question always comes in here, why do we multiply by pi over 180? Well, think of this like a fraction. If I have the same thing on top and the same thing on bottom, that means when I multiply, I'm multiplying by 1. If this was 4 over 4, that'd be 4 over 4 is 1, so you're multiplying by 1. This is how we convert fractions. We change to common denominator to get common denominators, and you multiply top and bottom by the same thing. It doesn't change the value. So here we're going to multiply by pi radians over 180 degrees because those are the same. And when I multiply that, I get 60 divided by 180 is 1 over 3. And then the pi stays right where it is. So this is pi over 3. And you can check the math on that if you need. So 60 divided by 180 is 60. You cancel everything out. You get 60 is 1. 60 cancels out and you get 1. 180 cancels out. You get 3. However you do that in your class. So you can go through and you can reduce the fractions just by multiplying them. So if you want to go from degrees to radians, multiply by pi over 180. Let's say I want to go the other direction. Okay, so now let's say I have 3 pi over 4. Well, if I want to change this to from radians to degrees, it's actually a lot simpler than it sounds because I just take that fraction, I flip it over. Okay, the 3 pi over 4 times 180, you can cancel these out however you want. Start off, look, there's a pi on top, pi on bottom, they're going to cancel. So you just have 3/4 times 180. Okay, so you can start off by doing that. Make the math easy on you. Once you go through and multiply that out, you find out that the degree is 135 degrees, the degree measure. So that angle is 135 degrees. 3 pi over 4 is the same as 135. The way, this may sound really too simplistic, but it's really the way I do it. The way I remember which value goes on top and which value goes on bottom is I remember all of my radians, I always have a pi in the top. So when I want to convert 2 radians, I need to multiply by the fraction with the pi on top. That's the only way I'm going to get my pi on top. So the 180 would have to be on bottom. And then you just flip that over to get go from radians to degrees.